Learning the difference between cultural appreciation and cultural appropriation isn't as difficult as some would make it. Cultural appropriation is when a person or a group of people takes elements from another culture without permission or respect for its origin. This can be seen in many aspects of society, but one of the most common is the appropriation of spiritual practices. Now, spiritual practices are deeply personal and meaningful to their originators. So when someone takes them without permission or respect for the culture from which they originated, it's a form of cultural theft and cultural violence. Not only is that disrespectful, but it can lead to misunderstandings, misrepresentations, and misinterpretations of the practices, particularly if you're somebody who's profiteering off the spiritual traditions of another culture. Now, some practices such as hoodoo, shamanism, voodoo, and Ifa are spiritual practices that are called closed spiritual practices because the core principles of those traditions are rooted in the literal blood and tears of oppressed and enslaved people. And so a white European could never connect deeply enough with the authentic source of the practice of hoodoo, for example, in an authentic way for it to be meaningful for them and without doing cultural violence to the people on whose backs those traditions were born. They could, however, be inspired by such traditions, learn from qualified teachers, and apply what they learned to their own practice, but only after committing themselves to always acknowledging the people to whom the tradition belongs and showing gratitude for those who were their teachers and acknowledging those teachers. But there's another aspect of this we need to be mindful of, and that's the arrogance of gatekeeping, which works both ways. For many of us of Afro-Sicilian, Southern Italian, Mexican, Mestizo, Filipino, and South American heritage, our ancestors include both those who were the oppressed and the enslaved, as well as the colonizers and the oppressors. And so for those of us in North America who are not First Nations or African American descendants, that also means recognizing that our traditions, whatever they happen to be, would not exist without the contributions of the many cultures of oppressed people who came before us from outside our cultures, who make up the North American melting pot of diversity. So the best way to approach your spiritual practice is always with gratitude, recognition, humility, and a heart intent on healing generational trauma.